Good afternoon, African Confessions. I am back with another episode. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and the message reads like this. Hello, how are you? I am a man who is aged 41. Right now, Brother Nashi, I don't even know the direction in which my life is going. I'm just someone who is just living. I have never been married in my life, and I have never had any woman who has ever came to me to tell me that me and her, we had a baby together. So many nights I so wish that one morning someone will come and knock on my door and tell me that me and her, we had a baby together. Brother Nashi, I am facing a lot of challenges in my life, but the primary challenge that I am facing is that I have a lot of bad luck, and I think that I know where this bad luck is flowing from. In our family, or let me say that I was born in a family of armed robbers and thieves. My grandfather was a well-known armed robber. In those days, they used to rob people using knives and machetes. They never had guns. But my father and his brothers, they used to rob a lot of people. They were using guns and other stuff. My father specialized in this thing of going into farms. There was still a lot of valuable things in those farms. We grew up in our home, and jewelry would be lying everywhere. This was the jewelry that my father would have stolen from those farms that they used to go into so that they can rob the people who owned those farms. I even learned how to use a gun at an early age. I think at that time I was still 10 years. Then the following year, that is when my father passed away. The way that my father passed away is that he had gone into this certain village. They used to go there, then there was still a lot of cattle. Then they would smuggle the cattle across the border. They used to smuggle this cattle into Botswana. So unfortunately, on that night, they didn't know that they were being watched by the local people and some police. On that night, my father and his friends, they were caught red-handed in the act. They were busy trying to open up the cattle kraal so that they can start to herd the cattle. Whenever my father would go to steal all of these cattle, either in the farms or in the villages, they used to have this other big truck. So they would go into the farms, then they would steal the cattle. They would drive that truck close to the Botswana border. That is when they would offload all of the cattle, and other people would be waiting for them on the other side of the Botswana border. Then they will get paid. This is the life that I knew. Unfortunately, on that night, my father was caught and he could not escape, but some of his friends, they escaped. But my father unfortunately could not escape because he was inside the truck, and when the truck was surrounded by the village people, my father could not escape. He was beaten before the police could rescue him. At that time when my father died, that is when my father's brothers, they used to support me, my siblings, and my mother. They used to bring a lot of groceries to our house. When I was 12 years old, that is when my father's older brother came and he collected me from our house, and I started staying with him. I stayed with him until I was 14 years old. Then he returned me back to my mother. All this time, my father's elder brother was teaching me how to do this thing of pickpocketing. So what we used to do is that early in the morning, he used to drive to town with most of the people that he was working with. My father's elder brother was one of those few pickpocketers that didn't use force when they were stealing from you. They used to work in a gang. Then one of the gang members will confuse you. Sometimes that person will be walking in front of you. It might be a woman or a man. That person will be walking in front of you. Then the rest of the gang members will be walking just next to you. Then my father's elder brother will steal from your pockets. But the way that they used to do it, it was so clever, because whenever my father's elder brother would have successfully stolen something from your pocket, then he would hand over anything that he would have stolen from you, either be it a wallet or a phone. By the time that you will notice that your phone is missing. If you try to search his pockets, you will never find your lost wallet or your cell phone because he would have quickly handed over the phone to one of his gang members. This was really interesting to me. Even my mother was someone who was really good at shoplifting, so I grew up in a family of armed robbers and thieves. When I was 15 years old, that is when one of my father's old friend, the one who used to steal cattle with him, at that time he had been arrested, but he was out of prison, I think on parole at that time. So that man, he came at our house and he told my mother that unfortunately he could not pay us a visit because he had been behind bars. But when he came to our house, he had a letter that he pulled out from his pockets. Then he handed that letter to my mother. The letter that was given to my mother by my father's old friend, it was written by my father, and it had a detailed map of where my father had hid some of the jewelry that he used to steal. So me and my father's friend and my father's older brother, we then went on that journey into the forest where the map was leading us to. The place where we went, it was quite a dense forest. So my father's elder brother, he left his car by the side of the road. Then we walked, I think, for about 3 hours until we reached a place where there was a hill. And according to the letter, that was the place where my father had hidden a briefcase, and he said that he had written that once you find the briefcase, inside that briefcase, there will be a letter giving you instructions where to dig. After reading the letter, that is when my father's elder brother and my father's former friend started to dig. We dug for about an hour. Then finally, we hit something that sounded like a metal box. So we pulled it out. And when it was opened, we saw that there was a lot of jewelry. My father's elder brother then took all of the jewelry and he sold all of the jewelry. I still remember that this was the first time that I saw a car with a GP number plate in our country that had came to our village. He had came to buy all of that jewelry. It was a lot of jewelry, and he left my father's elder brother with a lot of money. I still remember that when that car left, it was in the evening. That is when my father's elder brother locked all of us in the kitchen. You know, in the village, there is the kitchen hut. So he locked us inside. Then we started to count the money with him. We counted the money until we had lost track of time because my father's elder brother had told us that we had to separate the money. If the money was in US dollars, we had to place it aside. Then if it was in rands, we had to place it aside. We counted the money until we had lost track of time. This happened when I was 15 years old. So I grew up as someone who was really naughty. I was not even afraid of going to prison because even some of my relatives, I knew that if I were to go to this certain prison, I would have someone to defend me. Like I said that in our family, like I said that I come from a family that has a very long history of thieves and armed robbers. Then when I was 21 years old, I had my own crew and we used to travel around the country and we used to steal. Then on this other day, we went into this shop, you know, these black-owned shops. It was in the village, almost in the middle of nowhere. We looked at that shop, then we started to make some plans to later come back and rob the shop because there was no security, there was nothing. The thing that we noticed was that the owner of the shop, he used to sleep inside the shop and it seemed as if he had cash in his shop because that man, he was also a money changer. He used to change foreign currency. We used to go to his shop to pretend as if we wanted to buy some US dollars dollars or we wanted to buy some euros, we were just checking out his shop and we saw where he was keeping most of his cash, and we saw that this guy, he was in the trade of buying diamonds. And at that time, that is when in Zimbabwe there was this diamond rush, so diamond was almost everywhere. We noticed that this guy, he was in the business of buying diamonds, so we knew that he would be having a lot of cash. At night, just before you could close his shop, that is when one of our gang members went and pretended as if he wanted to buy a cigarette. From there on, we just rushed into his shop and we demanded all the cash and the diamonds that he had. Then the money that we took from him, it was around 8,000 US dollars with some diamonds. So from that shop, we ran because we didn't have any getaway car. We just ran and we followed this river. So as we were following that river, that is when me and my friends, we decided that we had to find another place, because one of our contacts who was in that village, he told us that the police were looking for us and they were on our trail because they were using those police dogs, and it seemed as if there was no way to run. We kept on running, but at least we told ourselves that if we were going to be arrested, one of my relative who was a lawyer, he was going to try and get us out of prison through bail. Then we would come back and dig up all of those diamonds and the money. So we looked for a spot that we could never forget. Then we dug a hole and we hid the money and the diamonds. Then we started running, but unfortunately we were caught. And this is what that man told us. When we were robbing us, he laughed and he said that you don't even know whom you are trying to rob. I promise you that before the morning comes, all of you are going to be arrested and you will be in prison. When that man told us that before the morning would come, all of us would have been arrested, we thought that he was just angry because we had stolen from him. Brother Nashi, on that night, that is when I started to believe that there is an evil world out there, because I remember that when we were running and we were following the river because we were lost in the forest, we told ourselves that if we can just follow this river, we would find the next village. But as we were following that river, I noticed that in the water, there was something that seemed to be following us. But when I told my gang members that it seems as if there is something that is following us, because whenever I would look back, I would see something that looked like a person who was swimming, but this person kept on following us. So my gang members just said it might be a crocodile. When my gang members told me that this might be just a crocodile, I relaxed a little bit, but whenever I would turn around to see if there was anyone who was following us, I kept on seeing someone who was swimming way behind us. Then the next thing that happened, when we arrived in the next village, that is when we saw that suddenly we were surrounded. The first thing that we had was the barking of the police dogs. When we tried to enter into the village, and suddenly that is when we had the police telling us to sit down and to raise our hands in the air. They started to beat us very hard. Then we were arrested and we were taken to prison. When that man came to the police station to give his own statement, I still remember when he told us that if you can tell me where you have hidden my money and my diamonds, I am going to forgive you. But if you can't give me back my money, I know that you didn't even use it. Please just tell me where have you hidden my money. But we remained quiet because we knew that we were going to get out of prison through bail. Then we would make other plans. When he saw that he could not make us talk, then he said, all of you, one day you are going to come back to me to ask for forgiveness. But at that time, I didn't even believe in this spiritual world. But now that I am all grown up, Brother Nashi, I have seen a lot of stuff. There are nights when I can't even sleep. I keep on seeing people that I don't even know. I might be walking in the street, then suddenly someone will start walking in front of me, but I'll never know where this person would have come from. Then that person will just turn around to look at me, then they would disappear. When these things started to happen to me, At that time, I was only 35 years old. The first day when this thing happened to me, I screamed so hard because the person who was standing in front of me really looked scary. So when people heard me screaming, they came to the place where I was standing and they asked me, what is it that I had seen? That is when I realized that if I was to tell people that this is what I had seen, people would just say that I am going mad. Brother Nashi, this is the things that are happening to me. I can be sitting and I'll just see someone. But now I am used to all of this because I don't want people to be judgmental, thinking that I have gone crazy. Brother, I don't even know where to find this man because after we were arrested, we stayed for a very long time in prison. After that, I never had the opportunity to travel back to that village. After we were released from prison, we tried to go back to that river where we had buried all of the diamonds and the money, but we could not find the place. We kept on getting lost, but when we had buried all the stuff that we had stolen, we had made clear markings and we knew exactly the spot. But we walked upstream and downstream, but we never saw that place where we had buried all of the stuff that we had stolen from that man. That is why I don't even have the nerves to go back to that man to ask for his forgiveness, because what will happen if I go there and if I confess everything? If I confess that we hid his money and he will say, take me to that place where you hid my diamonds, they will kill me if we go to that place and if I tell them that I can't even remember the place anymore. Dear brother, please post my own story. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received from Anonymous. Hey, please let us speak with our dear brother in the comment section.